One is saying when you go up to receive Holy Communion that you're not actually receiving Jesus. Yes, you are. It is a valid Mass. We're not talking about the validity. We're talking about, is this authentic Catholic worship? Is this how Catholics worship God? Is this a break from the past that's so violent that you can't really say this is authentic Catholic worship as we have understood it? Has the theology behind the Mass been so manipulated and twisted and deformed that Catholics going to this Mass miss something of the theology compared to talking about the traditional Latin Mass, the Tridentine Mass? That's what's at issue, not is it valid or not. To make a point, you can receive a sacrament validly and in the process still have your faith endangered. I'll give you an example. If you go to confession, and let's say you go to confession and you are confessing that you have committed adultery, and you have in fact committed adultery, and you go and receive absolution, and you know, if you receive absolution and you're contrite and all the normal things that happen with confession, is the confession valid? Yes. Have you been absolved? Yes. Has the sin gone away? Yes. All that's the case. But if the priest says to you at the end of it, oh, and by the way, don't worry, that's not really a sin. You know, I know your wife, and she's not the nicest lady around, so you can go ahead and have a get out of adultery free card. Your faith has been damaged. Is the sacrament valid? Yes. Has your faith been damaged? On the other hand, yes. We're not talking about the validity of the Mass. It is Jesus. The bread and wine are consecrated. It is Jesus. We're talking about, is this authentic Catholic worship? Is what's going on behind the scenes a possible detriment to your faith? That's the question. That's what Dietrich von Hildebrand's asking. That's what Alice von Hildebrand is asking. That's what Peter Stravinsky is asking. That's what all of these people who've written all of these books are asking. Is this a danger? What's going on? This is the point of this show. That's the point of all of these writings, all of these articles. This is why Pope Benedict is saying we need a reform of the reform. If there was no problem with the Mass, as we now experience it in most of our daily parishes in America and all over the world, with the Novus Ordo, the new Mass, if there was no problem with it, there would be no call from Rome to revisit this. All of these brilliant minds would not have written thousands and thousands of pages about this. We're not creating this. We're simply echoing everything they've thought and what we've been researching for hundreds of hours. And if the Holy Father himself says, wow, we really need to fix some things up here, then this is an issue worth looking at. And that's why we're doing this show. Protestants who were at the council as observers and were very familiar with the documents were surprised themselves at how much of an extent the documents accepted Protestant theology. One Anglican bishop, John Mormon, he was one of the Protestant observers. Listen to what he said. In reading the schema on the liturgy, that's the Bugnini plan that gets accepted by the council, I could not help but thinking that if the Church of Rome, lovely expression, the Church of Rome were to carry out all of the reforms proposed, they would one day find they had triumphantly invented the Anglican Book of Common Prayer. That's from an Anglican. He reads the thing and goes, oh, well, look at that. A Protestant professor of dogmatic theology at Strasbourg, M.G. Siegwald, said, nothing in the renewed Mass need really trouble the evangelical Protestant. These are Protestants assessing the Mass going, hey, rock on, Catholics. Took you 500 years, but you caught up to us finally. Good for you. Those reactions are precisely why all of these people wrote all of these books. It's what drove von Hildebrand to Pope Paul VI and said, whoa, put the brakes on this. This is what's been going on for 40, 50 years. According to the man who essentially developed the Novus Ordo, the new Mass, the Mass most of us attend each week in our parishes, it had to be stripped of anything Catholic that would be a problem for Protestants. In short, the prayer, the public worship of the new Mass. The question is it more Protestant or more Catholic? That is a very, very key question. Remember our opening quote? Lex orandi, lex credendi. It's not all of it. We pulled back one line. It is in its completion, lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi. How you pray is how you believe, is how you live. There's a connection between our prayer, our belief, and our actions. Of course there is. That's the point. In Catholic theology, the model of prayer you use will impact what you believe and how you live. So, this is the cheery part of the show. Let's look at some numbers so we can see what has happened to how Catholics believe and how they live. Since the introduction of the new Mass in 1969, the Novus Ordo, enrollment in Catholic religious seminaries worldwide, these are religious orders worldwide, has dropped precipitously. Hold on to your seats. For example, Jesuit enrollment has plummeted 89%. In 1965, this is the Jesuits, there were 3,559 seminarians. In the year 2000, 10 years ago, there were 389. An 89% drop. Now, as an aside, many people will think, well, that's not so horrible. It is the Jesuits, after all. But it's telling. The Franciscans dropped from 2,251 to just 60 worldwide in 2000. The La Salette seminarians went from 552 to 1, a drop of 99.8%. The Oblates of Mary Immaculate also experienced the floor dropping out from underneath them. In 1965, they had 914 seminarians. In the year 2000, they had 13, a drop of 99%. And the Redemptorist Order saw their seminarian numbers simply dry up also. 1,128 seminarians worldwide in 1965, 24 in the year 2000, a 98% drop. Now, overall, as we look at America, adding together all the religious order seminarians, the Jesuits, Franciscans, Dominicans, all of that, and the regular diocesan seminarians, there has been a 58% drop, more than half in 2 generations. In 1965, there were 6,000 seminarians. In 2010, 3,500. 3,500. That's for all of America, all religious orders, all diocesan. Anybody who would be ordained in this pipeline, no matter where you're from, in America, that's your full number, 3,500. Remember, those 3,500 seminarians aren't all ordained yet. Just because they're in the seminary doesn't mean they're going to turn out and become priests. Many of them will leave, find their vocation lays elsewhere. 3,500 seminarians does not mean 3,500 priests. Of those who were ordained, 1,575 men were ordained to the priesthood in 1965. In 2002, this is all priests in America. In 1 year, 450. A drop of over 70%. Now, that's the sorry state of affairs when it comes to laymen becoming priests. The story is even worse when it comes to women studying to be religious sisters. Look at these numbers. According to Georgetown Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, a wonderful group known as CARA, in 1965 there were nearly 180,000 women religious. In 2002, there were just over 67,000. A 62% drop, 2/3 of a reduction in women religious. These are gigantic numbers, and it's a trend. If you look at the women currently, the average age is, they're almost 70. The average age is almost 70. If you were to make this number from 2002 to 2020, which is 10 years from now, these numbers would almost be gone. They'll all be dead or exceedingly, exceedingly old. Let's take a look at what happened to the laity in general. In the United States, prior to the new Mass being introduced, over 75% of Catholics attended Mass each week. 75%, 3 out of 4, is unheard of to not go to Mass. Today, 23% of Catholics in America go to Mass each week. A considerable drop, 65%. Less than 1 in 4 Catholics in the United States now goes to Mass. In Italy, it's only slightly better. It's only 30%. In France, the eldest daughter of the church, Charlemagne, the year 800, receiving the crown and becoming Holy Roman Emperor. France, the eldest daughter of the church, 12% of Catholics go to Mass each week. And in Ireland, less than 50% go to Mass once a month. Once a month. We could go on, but you get the picture. The faith has been eviscerated in these 40 years, and the decline has coincided with the new Mass. How you pray is how you live.